Afternoon. I'm going to give you a brief introduction into what we do, and hopefully that will fit with the theme of the day. This is a real sort of touchstone image for me. I am absolutely fascinated by garbage and waste and landfill, and I think fascinated is the perfect word for it because it's sort of a place I'm caught between like hate and love, really. And you have to hate this because it's a real hideous proof of how gluttonous we are and how wasteful we are and how inefficient we are, right? But it's also spectacularly beautiful because if you stand beside a landfill long enough, you'll see past the nappies and the tennis rackets and things like that, and you'll start to see, or for me, these constant flows or these unique streams of really, really interesting, beautiful things. And sadly, in the UK, you can't just take those home because it's illegal, health and safety, blah, blah, blah. But you can go and meet the really cool truck drivers who brought it there and say, hi, where did you get that from? And they'll often tell you exactly where they got it from, which is amazing. So you can go and find beautiful materials to mess around with. Elvis and I do everything in an incredibly backward way. So people think of us now as designers, but we don't ever think about products. We think of problems. So I'll start always with a problem, and then I'm completely agnostic as to what industry or what market I'm going to go into or what product I'm going to make. It has to be something that deals with the problem. And the first problem that we came to deal with in the UK, and that now has made its way onto some people's waists, including my own, I'm wearing one of my first ever belts today, was fire hose. Now, fire hose is this absolutely spectacular material. I first discovered it in 2005, so yes, that means we've been doing this for a decade now. And I mean, look at it. It's something to love, really. It's absolutely stunning. It's red, it's lustrous, it's rich. It's got this incredible narrative to it. I mean, it's a heroic material. It's a life-saving material. And for me, I thought, what are we going to do with this? We've got to save it. It goes to landfill because it's a double-wall jacket of nitrile rubber around a nylon woven core. That's what gives it its strength, this nylon core. So you can't shred it and melt it and make new fire hoses. I've had quite a few people say, well, why don't you just change the way hoses are made? The problem with that is that fire hose lives for 25 years. So even if we discover a new way to use fire hose or to make fire hose tomorrow, we still have 25 years of waste to deal with before we get there. And if you get an enormous hole somewhere down the middle of a 22-meter hose, it goes to landfill because you can't have short hoses. Surprisingly enough, you need long ones to put out fires. So I thought this material deserved to be saved, and I genuinely didn't care what I was going to do with it. I just took it. I took it home to Elvis, and this is how our design practice developed. I put it on the floor and said, what are we going to do with this material? And he was like, what do you mean, we? You know, he had a job at that point, so he was a little bit skeptical. But we started to play around, and actually the first thing that we made was roof tiles because it's this beautiful red, and I thought it was fireproof. It isn't. I knew it was waterproof, but actually even after sort of X years of UV exposure, this will crack and no longer be waterproof. So not only is it not fireproof and not waterproof, but also there isn't enough of it to have a sustainable roofing business. So that would have been a rubbish thing to do because I would have roofed 3 houses, which would have burned down and leaked, and then I would have run out of material. So that business would have died. And eventually we made this. It actually took us quite a while to make something this cool. Our first bags were not so hot. But the reason to make a heritage product or a luxury product with the fire hose is because the fire hose has a story. You know, firemen use it. Firemen are awesome. Firemen are sexy. Everyone loves them, right? So it's got that inherent quality to the material. It's also an amazingly durable material. It's also unbelievably filthy when I get it and really impossible to clean. So by the time I've cleaned it, I've invested as much time and energy into it as a luxury company would invest in their hides. And I'm talking like the whole cow to tanned to ready to go process. So you have to make it into something high-end because that's how much money it takes to turn it into a textile. That's how much effort it takes to turn it into a textile. And also, I can't make cheap crap. You know, if you believe in the environment, you can't make stuff that's going to be worn a couple of times and then thrown away. You can't make stuff that's trendy for a season, because why? What's the point of that? You know, to be honest, my dream isn't that loads of you buy loads of my belts, right? My dream is that you all just have one belt, and it's going to last you for the rest of your life. And if there's any problems with it, I will fix it, or we will fix it after I go. Someone will fix it after me. And it genuinely will be a forever product. The third thing, I suppose, that we do, so we reclaim, we make cool stuff. The third thing that we do with the fire hose is we give 50% of the profits to the firefighters' charity. And the reason we did this in the beginning, this is a promise I made day one when I first started collecting the hose. I was like, gosh, we've got to share the profits with you guys, because you give us this material. And they thought, oh, we'll never see her again, because clearly she's not going to make any money doing this. But we have been the most consistent donor to the firefighters' charity of any corporation in their history. So 10 years of donations has done that. Yes, that means we've been profitable since the first year. Or my accountant thinks we weren't in year one, but you know, there was money left in the account, so we used it to good effect. But also, it gives you an interesting thing to talk about when you're talking about profits, because to me, profit to a certain extent is wasteful too. It's inefficient as well. You know, money is nothing. It's WD-40. It's a way to get something done. So if you're not reinvesting it or doing something awesome with it, then it has absolutely no point whatsoever. So that's our view on money. This isn't my investor's pitch, however. That's not how I really speak to that crowd. Okay, so I think if you then do good things and you do amazing things will happen to you. So this happened to us. In 2009, we were in US Vogue, and we were on Cameron Diaz in this amazing Mario Testino shoot. And we didn't seek this out. And for a small startup fashion brand like ourselves, this is like arriving in the Garden of Eden. This is like the thing that never happens to you. And over the years, I've started to think, why did this happen to us? Well, in an industry that's sort of about beauty and about all of these other things, and history and heritage and craft and quality, authenticity is actually extremely rare, and it is rewarded. And this was our reward for being good, I suppose. And it's also the thing that propelled us further into the fashion space and really established the brand, and was why by 2010 we achieved what we set out to. So I set out to solve London's fire hose problem. By 2010, we were big enough to do that. We were doing it. The scary thing was the day you realize you've done that, you think, oh, I have to keep doing that every year. Because it's a repetitive problem. You know, these things happen and happen and happen. And in some years where you get like the London riots, there's more hoses that come to us than in other years. So it's not a problem that will ever go away until they change the way fire hose is made. So I've got to keep going. The company has to keep running. And I think you go sort of from this sublime here to the absolute ridiculous, because in 2010, a couple of things happened. We had an amazing factory that we were working with in Romania. The reason we were in Romania was because when we first started manufacturing, no English factory would touch us, because they were like, ew, fire hose, yuck. We heard the same in Spain, Portugal, so we gradually started going further and further away. And the compromise we made by going as far away was Romania, was they were the only people who were going to make this with us. But a big luxury company discovered our factory in 2010, bought all their capacity, and we were out overnight, no manufacturer. And we also had an American distributor run off with loads of stock and not pay. We had all these things happen, and then I was sitting there on my laptop going, people are mean, I hate business, why did I ever set this up, and blah, blah, blah. And then I put this all in the Google heading, and then I clicked images, and this image came up. This was the #1 image. It's the logo and the slogan behind Assassin's Creed, which is this like really terrifying. I don't play video games, but this one is really unpleasant. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's the way the world is. Everyone's out for themselves, and rah, rah, rah. But I then looked at it again and again and again, and I kept looking at this image, and I was like, yeah, actually, everything's allowed. I'm allowed to do whatever I want. And this is part of the problem in the business industry, is that when you make money, you can actually do whatever you want. That's what's a bit dangerous about it. But for a company like ours, we just were empowered by that, because we thought, holy crap, we can do whatever we want. And we developed this sort of philosophy that has now become something like, do more, be better. I'm hoping that in Cambridge, someone will be able to translate that into Latin for me so we can actually start laser etching it into all our products. That's going to be our mantra from here on in. Now, if you're a waste obsessed person, and the extent to which I'm waste obsessed, like I judge a society based on the waste it produces. So when I first met Elvis, we went on a trip to the Philippines, the most beautiful place, this absolutely stunning island, and I spent 3 days on their open fire burning pit of a landfill trying to work it out. And not because I felt obliged, but because when I was on holiday, I thought that was the most fun way to spend my time. So that's the kind of person I am, and that means that you can't stop at fire hose, because there's way too many problems out there, and you've got to go sort of dive deeper and find something else. And actually, I didn't find this next problem, which is leather waste. Leather waste found me. An amazing guy who makes really the most beautiful saddles in the world said, what do I do with my leather waste scrap? And that was several years ago. So we started researching and looking into this problem. And we realized over time that, fire hose, there's 12 tons a year, give or take, right, in the UK. Leather waste, there's 35,000 tons from the luxury sector alone in Western Europe every year. 35,000 tons. And that's a much bigger problem than fire hose. So I have to come up with a solution that is much bigger than my solution for fire hose. And yeah, you can talk about like how trendy the circular economy is, but I read Ray Anderson's book a long, long time ago and fell in love with this idea that things should be forever and things should be component-based, and you should be able to take them apart and put them back together again. So when I started thinking about the leather, I put together these ideas and I gave it to Elvis, because I'm not the designer, Elvis is the designer. And this was his brief. I was like, all this leather scrap, now do this. Give me something that does this. You have to be able to take it apart easily without any tools. It has to be something that people can share, people can get engaged with, people can talk about on social media. It has to be something that people make themselves. I was like, come on, when we were kids, we loved Lego. Loads of people love Lego, and adults don't really feel empowered to play with Lego, so let's give them Lego for adults, that kind of thing. I'm probably not allowed to say someone else's brand name this many times in it, but So this is what I gave him as a brief, and he came up with this. 3 pieces that you can combine, and it's a sort of tab, lock, interlocking, weaving type system. And currently, we've got 3 shapes that you can make any 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional thing, provided it's geometric. So it has to be a rug, a cylinder, a cube, something like that. We're working on some other pieces, and we've had some sort of success with things that make you able to make more organic shapes. You could make maybe a skirt for yourself, or you could do really good upholstery or reupholstery, things like that. There are some things to really get excited about, and for me, it's hard not to get excited. But you could have a rug one year, and you could take it apart and make something else the next year. So what we're trying to do here is make it so that leather is forever. And we are so far, this is the problem of being from a really small company or a lean company, is that we have 20 prototypes of things that we know the pieces can achieve, but our photography got one thing on the website so far. So we're just trying desperately to catch up to ourselves. If you go on my website today or tomorrow, you'll see a rug. And the reason why the rug is the only thing there is because we are selling more rugs than we can manufacture at the moment. Which is, I suppose this is a spectacular problem for a small business to have. But for us, my only reason to grow, and I was talking about this over lunch, the only reason I want to grow isn't because I'm like, yeah, I want to have a big company and an empire, blah, blah, blah. I want to grow because 35,000 tons of the most beautiful leather you can possibly imagine going to landfill or being incinerated is a joke. So somebody's got to do something, and this is what we're trying to do. This gives you an idea of what you can do with the leather in 3D. Please, come to Kent. We have a totally transparent open workshop. Loads and loads of this leather in piece form. You play away, take your own pictures, post them on social media, see what happens. My final slide is this. This is Elvis, just so you can all meet him. He never really leaves the workshop, so I have to prove that he exists, and I didn't just invent him for, you know, SE, search engine optimization or something like that. And I think, you know, people will think this is really cheesy and corny, but actually, I do everything out of love. This is the big motivation for me. I grew up in a beautiful country. I love camping. I love running. I love trees. I'm a massive, like, actual tree hugger. I actually do it. And the reason I'm motivated to do any of the work that I do is because I get to do it with this awesome guy, and we get to work on stuff that we love every day. And I think that's what's going to solve the big problems that we've got. I want to see a world where people can take that, you know, the heart-beating passion of whatever is inside them and solve big problems with that energy, because that's the only kind of energy that is that will keep you going. Because otherwise, you know, there's a lot of bad things in business, and the only way to get through them really is by having great partners, collaborators, people around you, trust, supporting network, and to have something to be working on that's just to us still a privilege and a lot of fun. Thank you very much.